Welcome to another edition of The Watch List. I'm Jayar Jackson. What's going on? Happy Thursday, everyone. Appreciate you guys being here with us on the live show as we go into more and more of the insanity of the day. I was just talking to my guest, which I'm going to bring on in a second, and the depressing things that go on with our world. I'm trying to avoid a little bit of considering specifically the murderous levels of our world, things that we can kind of talk about, but when does it end? Sorry, we got one of those today. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and bring him in. Farron Cousins joins me today, host of Ring of Fire and also Farron Balanced. Please, one of the friends of the show. Love seeing you here, Farron. How you feeling, brother?
I'm doing great, man. It's always good to be here. We always have a lot of fun.
I was just gonna say that. I always wanna make sure people know there's always fabulous conversations before we come on here. I won't reveal it, but there's a lot I learned about Farron and his process. Makeup process in the morning. It's always fun times, yes. Maybe you can ask him on his shows. Let him explain those to you if he feels that way. But no, we've got a big slate of things going on. More developments with George Santos, Anthony DeVolder. Please hold on, of course, fun stuff in a way, considering the guy's still a congressman. Which I'm gonna ask you maybe some predictions of what may come of that as we go. But let's go ahead and start here. Because we talked the other day about the latest scam that DeVolder Santos pulled off by defrauding a veteran with his dog and a GoFundMe there. Well, that veteran speaking out, he went on CNN to give more details of what happened and how he figured this whole thing out. Let's start here.
And at what point did you all realize that Anthony DeVolder is George Santos, an elected?
A week ago.
A week ago?
A week ago. I started seeing his face on
and to be clear, obviously
news.
you're not following politics, you're not, right? So it's just like you kind of stumbled across his face in a story.
Right. I mean, I watch the news all the time. Kind of a hobby. I love my YouTube news. But I saw his face and I knew I sort of recognized him a little bit because we had been Facebook friends while the campaign was going on. Mm-hmm. So I knew what he looked like. And I knew his voice, and that was the only thing I knew about him. And I saw him on TV, and I was like, I got a feeling in the pit of my stomach about this guy. Who is he, and why do I recognize him? Just about a week ago, he was in the Capitol, and there was a bunch of reporters following around, asking us questions. Like, that's about the only thing you see him, anymore. And one of them said, "What's your name today? Is it Anthony DeVolder or is it George Santos?"
Then when that name was said,
correct,
a week ago, then you realized.
I was sick, yeah. To see that somebody like that could do something that dastardly could raise to such high position, that shouldn't be right. That shouldn't happen.
There's veteran Richard Ostoff with the dog Sapphire that he lost in that scam that Anthony DeVolder in that particular case pulled on him, which I have to stop and pause for a second. Dastardly is a word that's not used nearly enough. I think I'm gonna incorporate that in my vocabulary. But still, he talked about this fraudulent case that he pulled on him and his dog still died. We talked about it earlier this week. As a matter of fact, he's 47 years old. It was $3,000 that was raised. For some reason, George Santos wanted to go ahead and take that and end that dog's life. Also, by the way, since these allegations are swirling and everyone's talking about the latest things from George Santos, he actually responded on camera. Let's watch.
Don Lemon reached out to to George Santos, and got him to respond to you.
He told me, he said I was fake and it didn't. Yeah, I read that.
Let me read it so if everyone can hear, and I want to give you each a chance to respond to it. He said, I have no clue what he's talking about. And the crazy part is that anyone that knows me knows I'd go to hell and back for a dog, and especially a veteran. So this is just more of the pile-on effect. I have dozens of people reaching out to me in support, sharing their stories about their dogs and cats that I helped save and rescue. What do you each say to that?
Prove it, show us. He should show us if he has all these people that reach out to him and that love what he does and stuff. It's not, no.
I want to point out something that Santos did in that statement in response. He says, anybody who knows me knows that I love dogs and cats and I would do anything for them. That statement means absolutely nothing. It's very Donald Trumpian, and I think he kind of took it from that approach, because every time Donald Trump was accused of something, very legitimately accused with proof and evidence behind it, he'd say, anybody who knows anything about this knows that that's nonsense. Who's that and what do they know? Are you gonna tell us what it is? Perfect response there from Ostoff, who was like, okay, anybody who knows it, but how about you show it? He can't do that. Instead, it's just believe me, bro. By the way, his buddy that sit next to him, Michael Abol, who's president of the New Jersey Veterans Network, he also had some more details about Santos and what he's all about in this whole thing. Let's watch.
Coming here, staking my name of our charity on this. I back Rich 100% on this. There's no doubt in my mind that this was done, and it's horrible that this veteran has to go through this. Veterans, we lose them 22 a day, and our charity does whatever we can to prevent that from happening and work with other people and really rely on other charities. When a charity does something like this, another one, it just causes more problems for us to get the mission of saving our veterans' lives. And it's disgusting, and it's unfortunate that this happens in 2023 still to this day.
Well, I know it's hard for you to talk about this, and I appreciate you doing it. And of course, Michael, you coming as well.
I didn't want to have to go through any of this at all. Today has been just a whirlwind of people calling me and wanting to talk. And I'm a very private person. I have my dogs, and I really never have anybody over my house.
And everyone should know you have 2 dogs now.
2 dogs now.
And of course, Sapphire with you too.
Yeah, she'll always be with me.
2 dogs, and he mentioned a home as well. I was pointed out before, his dog was his companion as he was dealing with being unhoused there. So there's more details with George Santos and all that. But first, Farron, so we've got the story originally about the $3,000 worth that was scammed and taken by Santos with multiple different names. But now we have Richard Osthoff now talking to everyone. And I'm curious, I don't know if a bunch of politicians who are supporting Santos are finally going to find this division between the 2 of them and choose which side they're actually going to land on. Maybe they're already talking and I missed it, but your thoughts here?
Really, like you mentioned, the word dastardly. It applies perfectly here because you take every single thing that, regardless of your political affiliation, everybody can agree to support. We're talking about an unhoused, disabled veteran and the service dog, and Santos scammed all of it. I mean, you take everything that everybody's like, no, this is something we all agree we love, and Santos wraps it all into one scheme, just one on top of everything else. But I also want to say something interesting about DeSantos' statement, or Santos, sorry. It's not what he said, it's what he didn't say. He didn't say, this is a lie and I'm gonna sue this individual. Because obviously, if this were untrue, this would be a very clear-cut case of defamation. George Santos could absolutely file a lawsuit to make this stop. But he didn't even say that. Because I think deep down he knows this is not something I could win. We've seen politicians all the time threaten to sue for defamation, even though it's a very high bar to hit. But the fact that he wasn't even willing to say that or suggest it kind of shows that, yeah, Osthoff here, he's got the receipts. I mean, we've seen the text messages, we've seen the posts on social media that he has shared. I mean, it is difficult for Santos to lie about this. I mean, he's lying about it anyway, but the evidence is overwhelming in this particular instance. And for him to just come out and say, nope, didn't happen, I love dogs and cats, Osthoff is right. Well, show us. Prove it. If you were actually running this charity, there are going to be receipts. I mean, there's old GoFundMe campaigns, right? I mean, you can access those. Where are they, George? But he won't do it because I'm willing to bet they probably don't exist.
It's probably pretty telling though, once you cross the animal and pet line, I guess you can screw over Americans and constituents and lie to people all you want, BS on your resume, get into office. Once they start fighting about how you screwed over a dog and you gotta make sure that she didn't get the treatment that she needed to save her life, I think that's pretty bipartisan. People are gonna come down hard on you on that. Let's go ahead and shift gears then, you guys. Let's go to this next story, because we're talking about politicians and lies and making sure that they're looking good. Well, inner one, Byron Donalds, who's finally jumping in on the whole documents search that's going on with Biden. Let's watch.
About this, what is this investigation going to look like?
Well, listen, the number one question is going to be why the double standard in the way the FBI is utilized by the Department of Justice. They had no problem raiding Mar-A-Lago, but let's go back even before the Mar-A-Lago raid. Donald Trump's attorneys was in negotiations, in talks with the National Archives. They were well aware of what was happening at Mar-a-Lago. So why the FBI raid? You compare that to what's happened with Joe Biden at his residence, where yes, the FBI was there, but Merrick Garland didn't do his job in making sure that they were running the search and investigation to make sure everything was found and secured. Third question, did Joe Biden's attorneys, do they have security clearance to handle these documents and continue that search? That's a major question as well.
As politicians keep talking about the document problems between both presidents, the current and last, Trump and Biden, and the documents that they were holding at different residences and places like that. Enter Byron and Donald's here. This is more of a story, by the way, since we're talking about this in the documents, more about propaganda pushing and making sure that you're positioning your constituents, or at least your voters and supporters, to think one way despite what's right in front of everyone's face. And as you saw Donald's there talking about, so what's the problem? I mean, what is the thing that we're worried about here then? This is the problem with why we have these document problems with Biden. He asks the question as to then what's the problem there. As a matter of fact, there is an answer. He's acting as if there isn't one. Oddly, John Roberts here from Fox News gives him the answer. What's the difference? Watch.
Yeah, well, going back to Mar-A-Lago, those negotiations had gone on for more than a year between the Department of Justice, the Trump organization, or not the Trump organization, but the president's post-presidential organization and the National Archives and Records Administration. But at some point, President Trump's attorneys told those entities that all of the documents had been handed over, when that wasn't the case, which is what prompted the raid. So in terms of the differences here, there do seem to be some, but you believe that there is still a double standard here in terms of how those two things were handled.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt.
So John Roberts pushed back and gave him the answer he needed, but he did it very timidly. But you still say that there's a difference. You just told him what the big difference is. But you then give him that layup and be like, but you still say that there's no difference. There's still something wrong here. If people aren't listening closely, that was him completely dismantling Donald's argument, which let's let Donald see if he can continue to try to recover from more as he answered that question.
Because here's the other thing. You get leaks to the press, pictures of documents tossed all over the floor. I mean, come on, this is the kind of double standard that has existed. Unfortunately, it appears that the Department of Justice, one of the reasons why House Republicans have formulated the weaponization of the federal government committee that is going to be looking into this and more, as well as the oversight committee. But the one thing that's being lost with the documents that have been found at President Biden's Wilmington home, and to not to step off of that, is what about the documents at the Penn Biden Center? Because those documents are not in his home, they were in another office. How long were those documents there? How did then Vice President Joe Biden get those documents when he left office?
Ask all those questions, investigate the hell out of it, bro. But the thing that starts off from the top is, let me absolve Donald Trump from this whole problem and say it's only Biden. Yo, you can do your investigations, investigate both of them, bro. But the thing is, you have to make sure it's partisan first, Farron.
Yeah, and the special prosecutor that they've picked to look into the Biden situation, it's a former Trump appointed U.S. attorney, so it's a Trump guy. And the DOJ is basically bending over backwards to say, listen, Republicans, I'm doing everything you want me to do. I'm putting your own guy in charge of this to just try to dismantle any arguments that this is somehow a partisan investigation. And of course, Republicans don't care. They're going to attack it as a partisan investigation. Trump has already come out against that special prosecutor as well, said, oh, he's been friendly to Democrats and rhinos alike. And it's like, dude, that's your guy. You put him in a position of power, and now you're trashing him just because he's the one that gets to investigate Biden. None of this makes any sense. And listen, I've said plenty of times on Ring of Fire, look, I have no problem with them putting a special prosecutor on this. I have no problem with them investigating this. If worst case scenario, you find corruption and we root out corruption, fantastic.
Yep.
And most likely what's gonna happen is it's gonna fizzle out, just like the investigation into the investigators. I forget his name, it escapes me at the moment, but that whole big thing that was supposed to blow everything open and then just literally disappeared with nothing happening, no convictions, and Republicans are pretending it didn't happen. The same thing will probably happen here because yeah, Biden had things he shouldn't have had, but was it malicious? Was there intent to break the law? I don't think at all that is the case. I don't think he did anything maliciously. I don't think, as Republicans have suggested, there was a blackmail scheme, to say, I've got these documents and you can't investigate Hunter, even though this was before all of the Hunter stuff was even happening. None of it makes any sense, but they're pushing it because they have to craft this narrative that what Biden did was bad, but what Trump did was totally cool.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you want to play down the middle, like I was saying, they can go after all of it. If you want to find the truth, it's obvious whether or not you're looking for the truth. One little thing you mentioned that I want to, expand on there. You said it's going to fizzle out, but the whole point about it fizzling out, I think, is being the details of this. What stays is that thought in the back of supporters' heads. This is totally unfair. It's all completely exactly the same. That's why once Byron Donalds blew over that response or that clarification, it's not for the sake of the facts. It's for the sake of continuing pushing that unfairness line. They need people stuck in this mindset of one side is coming for us. Can you believe how unfair they are? Well, do something about it. Go down the middle and make it fair. No, you stay with the partisan arguments because that's what propaganda is for. To leave that permeated in your head that what the problem is unfairness, and they're coming after you. Aren't those horrible un-American people coming for you and your president? Just completely forgetting what he did.
Well, and that is what does give me cause for concern, because obviously, let's assume Biden doesn't get charged with anything, no crime, and that goes away. But then Trump does get charged. What will his supporters do at that point when they look out and say, well, Biden did it, he didn't get charged, our guy did it, he got charged, this is unfair, we have to do so. That's what worries me, because we have seen what these people can do, and so if that comes to that, I'm worried about what happens, across the country with these Trump supporters if he gets charged and Biden doesn't. Even though it's a completely different, scenario.
How about a prediction? If it comes to that, what will then be said, the same narrative will be like, look at these Department of Justice, Biden Department of Justice folks that only went after Trump. And they'll completely gloss over the point that you made earlier, that this is a Trump guy who's investigating it. It's happened multiple times when Trump lawyers, Trump judges that are appointed do things that he doesn't like. And then the narrative across politicians and pundits on the conservative side ends up being, look at these lib Democratic judges, bro. But they brush right over the facts of who these people are. Doesn't have to make any sense, as you pointed out. Let's take this first break, though. Get some sense of some of y'all's comments on these first couple of stories. But also, when we come back, probably my favorite story of the day, because we used to do this segment back on TYT back in the day. That was what would Jesus do? Our director and now purveyor of everything digital here. This is a question of whether or not you would take the money and run. I want to get y'all's thoughts on this. We'll do that and your thoughts when we come back.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was the white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it, though.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
Back on the watch list, what's going on, you guys? TYT members, Early Bird 42. Let's get a few else comments. They say, I really wish they would stop calling it a raid. They legally executed a search warrant peacefully without issue. After they did have conversations with Trump's folks who said, we've turned over everything, signed it and everything. I think it was Christina Bobb, the anchor that turned Trump attorney, that did that. But again, back to the same points we're making. They're calling it a raid so it can stick in people's minds that he was pulled out in his underwear and handcuffed and face down on the ground while they rifled through his wife's belongings. They probably said that specific sentence. Over on Twitch, Torch Crimson says, oh my God, I love, let's see, how many loves? Love Farron. And of course, much love to you, JR. You don't have to go ahead and give me that sympathy love. It's fine, I feel you, thank you, Farron's here. But I appreciate it though, keep doing it. Octo Squiddies, Helen Beck is another one of his names, Helen Beck. We're talking about George Santos. We didn't jump to that part about his apparent drag queen days over in Brazil. I mean, I haven't independently confirmed that whole story, but that's what they're saying. Wildcard 273 also on Twitch says, I'm so PO'd about George Santos. How in the F did none of this come up prior to the elections? How did his Democratic opponent not bring this to light? Maybe he heard about it and thought they were gonna say, look at the timing of this, which they always say whenever you see something happening. I don't get to YouTube enough, really fast. Two comments here from YouTube. Luke Hughes says, hey Farron, love your shows. Also good to see you here. Farron's getting the love today on the watch list. What is it you're doing, bro? Jeez.
I love it, I love it.
There's another part about this. Hot Pot Biddy Dragon says, yay, Farron. This is a dragon person. This is a TDR guy or gal. Can't tell because Bernie Sanders, I think, is in their profile. Let's go ahead and jump to this next story. As I said, this is a story about where your moral values and beliefs really stand and what you do if you find a big sack of cash. Let's watch.
I just went to McDonald's and he's handing me my sausage McMuffin and this bag. Well, what's in this bag? Their deposit. Why? Just a couple $1,000s here. Like, what is this? Why would they do this? What the f? So now I have to return this because I'm a good person, I guess. Yeah, how interesting. Okay, I'm at McDonald's. Why would you guys do this to me? You know how bad I want this money? Why put me in this situation?
My man was going through a bit of a dilemma there. After he's had a sack of cash instead of his Egg McMuffins. Pause for a second though. That was a lot of money. He said maybe a few thousand. I would assume that it's heavier than 2 Egg McMuffins. I'm not sure how they got those two things confused. Maybe it's a quick rush in the morning. Maybe the new trainee just tossed the first bag that they saw over the counter. But as we saw, he's faced with this dilemma. Let's go ahead and watch how he handled it. Because he showed back up to McDonald's. Strike one in my book. Sorry, no, not so. Let's go, let's watch what he says next.
You guys laundering money out here?
No.
What the?
This was a just. Oh God, look at that. Oh my God. Oh, blessed from God.
Dude.
Oh my God. Oh my God, I really want to give you a hug. Oh my God. I even want to take a picture of you.
I cut that short, but they were just all hugging me and thanking me and crying. And I get free McDonald's for a month, I guess. Wow. When I was driving away, they called me back in to give me $200. Do good, people. Return $5,000, get $200 and free McDonald's for a month. Good trade value.
I feel like our man Josiah there, he feels okay about it, but he's still thinking of what he could have done with $5,000. But he did go back and return it. So I want you guys to keep it, check on your scorecard where you stick with Josiah versus what you would have done in these first couple of steps. Because you heard at least, the relief in those employees' voices when he finally came back with the money, which I felt pretty good about because they would have been going through some serious issues if that money ended up continued to stay missing. And it also showed they had no idea who they gave it to. He was off in the clear. One more piece though, because as he pointed out, $200, free McDonald's for a month. maybe a trade-off you guys would go for, but this is what happened. He went back to collect his free McDonald's.
I went back to McDonald's after work, and they had no idea who I was, but they put my name down and my number, and I had to pay for my 2 McChickens and a Sprite, which is fine. I'm not too worried about it. How was that? This is my fiance. No sliding my DMs.
Stay out of my man Josiah's DMs. He's engaged, you guys. But he did have to pay for his 2 McChickens and his Sprite. The injustice is just overwhelming, Farron. You do the right thing, and they forget who you are.
They forgot who he was in a matter of hours. Like, it's not like he went back 2 weeks later. This was the same day. And like, sir, we've never seen you before in our lives. Please leave the store. But no, it really does make you wonder, because I know everybody already has that snap judgment in their head, like, no, I would totally walk away with it, or I would definitely return it. You don't know that. Like, I want to say that I would absolutely return money if somebody accidentally handed me a bag of money, but there's going to be circumstances, right? I mean, everybody is going to look at it and take a second thought of like, well, wait a minute. But I do think in this case, it maybe depends on the store, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously at McDonald's, if that money had gone missing, you're talking about potentially that whole crew that was working at that time getting fired, right? Totally, absolutely would return it no matter what was in the bag right there. And that man definitely did the right thing there. But you still might end up with some firings, because that kind of mishandling of that much money, like their entire deposit, that's a pretty significant oopsie do. And I worked in McDonald's throughout high school. I had to, I was in training to be a manager, and I would sometimes have to do the counting of the cash and put it in the machine. And then we had a bank bag that would lock. And you put all the money in the bank bag, not in just like Ziploc bags inside a McDonald's bag you leave laying around. No, it goes in the money bag, it gets locked, then it got put into a safe, and the safe was locked. So I don't know, maybe they've changed protocol, because I haven't worked there in 23 years, but seems like maybe tighten up the ship a little bit, because you really almost ruined a lot of people's days with that, because it wouldn't have just been the manager. It would have been pretty much everybody, because they wouldn't know where the money went.
It probably would have been prosecutions. They're thinking that they stole it. Where is it coming from? I'm glad you have that unique perspective of being in that same position as an employee there 23 years ago. Put it in a bank bag and into a safe. That was in Ziplocs and a McDonald's plastic bag, bro. Come on, it was in the pancake bag, the wide ones. Not to say I have McDonald's pancakes. I actually haven't had McDonald's in a very long time. But Josiah did the right thing. You guys go find him on TikTok somewhere, follow him. He deserves a little bit of love. Let's go ahead and shift gears, since that was a fun story. In fact, I'm very curious about y'all's thoughts. Emily, see if you can toss some of those thoughts in there. I'm curious what people thought. Maybe I'll read it before we get out of here at the end of the day. On to that depressing death and killing and murder story, except there's a clown that did it. Let's start here.
On January 1st, defendant Googled using his son's iPad. Some of his searches are as follows. Keep in mind that the defendant said he left at 6 a.m. At 4:55 a.m. on January 1st, he searched how long before a body starts to smell. At 4:58 a.m., how to stop a body from decomposing. At 5:20 a.m., he searched how to unbound a body.
That man there, Brian Walsh, he's a Massachusetts husband and father. If you couldn't tell by the accent on that lady's voice there, she's reading out some of the things that was going on there. He's accused of killing his wife, Anna, who was missing, and he's pleaded not guilty to that charge. And she was reading out some of the things that he searched on his son's iPad. It was a bit echoey in there. So you know what? Let me go ahead and read some of those things that he was searching after his wife went missing, and that they did find on a home iPad his sons. Here's some of those things. Here's a list. The last time he told police he saw Anna was on January 1st at 6 o'clock in the morning. The prosecutor read in court the following searches that he allegedly looked up on January 1st, probably a few hours later. Look, about 4:55 in the morning before he said she went missing. How long before a body starts to smell? How to stop a body from decomposing? How to embalm a body? This is consistent throughout the morning before 6:10 in the morning. How to embalm a body? 10 ways to dispose of a body if you really need to. Who's posting that? How long for someone to be missing to inherit? And I think there's one of the big clues into his motivations. There's more about this guy because then after that at 6:40 in the morning, can you throw away body parts? What does formaldehyde do? How long does DNA last? Yeah, I'm gonna read these fast because he had about 100 of these searches. Can identification be made on partial remains? Dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. How to clean blood from wooden floors. Aluminol to detect blood. What happens when you put body parts in ammonia? Is it better to throw crime scene clothes away or wash them? Yo, this is like serial killer 101. Which site is he on looking for this stuff? You think Google's just like, yeah, we're gonna give you all this information and there's no flagging, there's no one realizing that you're searching how to dispose of my murdered wife. Yo, I can't read them all because there's more. It went into the next day and then the next day, all through January 3rd. And the last one was, can baking soda mask or make a body smell good? What an idiot this guy is. Here's his wife, who they've determined has probably been killed. They haven't found any remains at this point. And this is Brian Walsh here, as he was getting perp walked, looking like a guy who doesn't give a damn what it is that he's facing or the seriousness of these charges, or that he potentially looks like he killed his wife. So one more piece here, because his Google search before her disappearance showed even that he was trying to divorce her, or he's planning at least to divorce her before that. I guess it escalated quickly from there. Let's watch that.
They also say he Googled back in late December, what is the best state for a man to get a divorce in? They say instead of divorcing, he dismembered and discarded his wife's body. Those remains have not been found, they say, because they were taken to dumpsters in 2 different Massachusetts communities, and then they were, by routine, taken to a plant for incineration. But they believe they have solid DNA evidence linking him to her murder.
So much more about this guy, but first thoughts about these searches, because yo, this guy has so many things that link him to this crime that I want to go through. But first, Farron, hear about this guy's Googles.
The only thing missing from his search history is, how do I clear my search history after I've just murdered and dismembered my wife? I mean, really, at this point, like, I don't even know how this guy was able to walk into court with a straight face, or as in that picture you just showed, smiling face, and plead not guilty. I mean, obviously everyone is innocent until proven guilty. I get that. But I mean, my God, the evidence is overwhelming. The search history alone is enough to indict this man. Obviously, they found her blood, they found his blood on the weapons, on the clothing. Like, it's very obvious what most likely happened here. And I just, there's been reports this morning, I've seen it a couple times, that he may consider changing his plea because his lawyers are saying, yeah, you know what? This is almost impossible to defend. So we'll see what happens. My heart goes out to the kids. They got 3 kids, ages 2, 4, and 6. And that is just like, that is heartbreaking. And what's next for them? Where do they go live? If it's with the family, then as they get older, how about my parents? Jesus, I'm glad you brought that up. It's a big part of it. That's honestly the biggest part about this, after the fact of the potential murder, but then how these kids have to grow up really fast, because this guy has a bit of a track record, which also leads to us realizing why he did something like this. He's 47 years old. He comes from a wealthy family, pleaded guilty in 2021 to charges that he had sold fake Andy Warhol paintings to a California art dealer. So he had been on home confinement with a few exceptions while he was waiting for a sentencing just in that case. So there's also physical evidence that they found around and surrounding areas that connected him to this as well. Really fast, Norfolk County Assistant District Attorney Lynn Belland said in Quincy District Court that investigators found the couple's DNA along with a code vaccination card for Anna Walsh and a hacksaw, cutting shears, and a hatchet in trash bags in a dumpster at Brian Walsh's mother's apartment complex. Jesus, about 40 miles north of where they lived.
Investigators also said they found blood and a damaged knife with blood on it in the basement of their home. Lastly, he was also seen on surveillance video. This is straight out of a cartoon. He was on surveillance video on January 2nd, a day after he said she was missing, buying $450 in cleaning supplies, mops, bucket, tarps, drop cloths, and tape, all from Home Depot, is what the prosecutor said. He had told the police that the only time he left the home was to buy ice cream for his son on that day. I can see now why, as you pointed out, Theron, that these attorneys are like, yo, you're gonna have to change this plea or else you have to change attorneys, because this doesn't make any sense, bro. You did it.
Really, I mean, he may as well walk in a court with, I murdered my wife and all I got was this lousy t-shirt. I mean, it just screams guilty. And I think you bring up a good point. Like, this is almost cartoonish with what he did. Like, this is what you see in, maybe like a comedy movie where, oh no, we accidentally killed somebody, we got to do something. But it's so terrible what happened here. I mean, and his wife was very successful. She was climbing the corporate ladder. She was doing great. He's screwing the family, every possible way with the fake art dealing. Now with this, again, allegedly killing his wife. But my brain goes back to the kids. Yeah. I just keep thinking about how horrible this is. Where do they go? I mean, who is there to care for them and get them through this traumatic part that you'll never really get through? This, especially with the oldest one. So
who do they become in life? It sucks.
Exactly.
It's destroyed the entire family off of some money. Coming from a wealthy family, you can't hack it. So you go for all of this other stuff, looking for divorces and money and murder and all this stuff. It's disgusting. I want to get a couple of y'all's thoughts really fast because we just talked about the McDonald's thing. I'm gonna take the pulse of the watch list watchers and see if you guys are moral human beings. TYT member Lynn says reward $200. McDonald's for a month, $300. Clear conscious prices, except he's got to get that free McDonald's. By the way, a month? I meant to say this. How about the rest of your life, bro? At that one particular location. Twitch, Necro says, I probably would have kept it, not gonna lie. Mr. YF says, I'm 100% keeping the bag till I'm asked. Well, by the time they ask you though, it might be too late. And also on YouTube, Lovely Pariah says, any progressive or decent person would return it. Way to inject a little bit of morality into these these opportunistic, immoral people in our chat. I'm not gonna tell you guys what I would have done. Depends on what point in my life I was at. Okay, let's go to this next story. You guys have maybe seen this happening before, maybe a few weeks ago. A man in need was, I guess, confronted by paramedics that came supposedly to help him. There's updates on this, but let's watch this.
Earl.
When's your birthday, man?
Hey, what's your birthday?
You're like 90. That's about all we've been able to get.
Earl, sit up.
3, getting playing off the booze.
Sit up.
Come on, Earl. Let's
sit up,
man.
What happened? Seriously.
Sit up.
Sit up. Sit up now. I am not playing with you tonight. Sit up. What is your birthday?
Earl, you want to go to the hospital, man? We need to get up.
You're gonna have to walk because we ain't carrying him.
So let's get up on your feet.
Because I am seriously not in the mood for this though.
You can walk. Come on. Let's stand up.
I'll get you a coat, Earl.
I know you can do it. I've seen you do it.
I say no.
Stand up. Use your legs.
Remember that time you called the paramedics because you were incapacitated, couldn't even walk, move, barely breathe, and they walked in and said, "Get up, Earl, get up." Well, that's what Peggy Finley was saying in there. Those two guys there, those are police officers out in Springfield, Illinois. But the paramedic there, again, Peggy Finley, was seriously not in the mood for Earl's BS, is what she said. So he's in bad physical shape. His name is Earl Moore Jr. And she just wasn't in the mood. So the cops tried to walk him out, throw his arms over their arms a little bit and drag him out. But you discover just how bad a shape Earl is in. We don't know yet. I'm gonna tell you why, but let's watch that.
Just take your coat with them.
Yeah.
I gotta put it on.
I got your coat. Come on.
Wet bullets.
Wait.
Nope, we're not doing that. Only way we're gonna get you is if we walk through the house.
Come on, Earl.
You're not dead weight. Maybe we are. All right.
No, we're just being lazy. Get up. Or you can stay here.
If you want to go to the hospital, man, you got to help us out a little bit.
Earl, are you gonna go or are you gonna stay, bud?
If you're gonna go, you need to get up and walk.
Man, you gotta help us out a little bit. We ain't never gonna get out of this house. All you gotta do is walk out that front door. Yeah, it's right outside. Wait.
Come on. Earl, get up.
Is it right outside the door?
Earl, get up.
Yeah, all he has to do is walk out there.
At this point, I guess the assumption is that Earl just doesn't care and he wants to lay on the floor because it's more comfortable there when he said, I can barely breathe and things like that. So anyway, this is the crux of this whole thing. Just outside was a little bit of help. More paramedics, an ambulance, a stretcher even, who Peter Cadigan, Peggy's partner, I guess fellow paramedic, was standing by waiting. Now pay attention to this video, how they place him face down on the stretcher and how aggressive they strap him down. That's the whole point about what happened here. Watch this.
We're spinning him around and we're putting him on. Stand up. Stand up. All right, Earl, this is getting a little silly, man. There you go. There we go.
What's got this guy who just first time saw Earl Moore Jr. this angry, slamming him face down on this stretcher, strapping him down like he's really trying to beat this guy up? What are you so mad about? Why do you have this job? Earl died of compressional and positional asphyxia due to prone face down restraint on a paramedic transportation cot stretcher by tightened straps across back and lower body in the setting of lethargy and underlying chronic alcoholism. That's according to a coroner's report obtained by CNN. Yes, Earl died later on that night. The first thing that was communicated to them was that he's a severe alcoholic and he'd been going through alcohol withdrawals. It had been 4 days since he had a drink. Who knows why? Maybe he's trying to do something different. Maybe he couldn't get his hands on any. Whatever the reason is, you're the paramedics. Well, now they've been charged, those two, Cadigan and Finley, have been charged with first-degree murder, by the way. So now they're facing those charges. There's details of how that can come. I'm not sure how they're gonna adjudicate this. But Farron, is this gonna stick? Number one, and Jesus, what job do you want as paramedics?
Yeah, I mean, those were two people that clearly, like, they didn't care about their jobs. They didn't care that it is your job. Doesn't matter if the person's having hallucinations, withdrawals, or if it's an actual medical emergency. You have taken this job with the expressed intent to help people. So I get it. You're having a bad day. You're not in the mood. Doesn't matter. You are in a life or death situation and in a position with that job where almost every call could be life or death. If you're having a bad day, you don't get to take it out on a person who is, at that point, unable to even comprehend what is going on, and yelling at him and chastising him as if, oh, well, God, now I got to do this for the day. I wanted to go home early. I thought we could clock out. Like, go to hell. That's my response after seeing these two individuals, and I'm glad that they're charged. And, based on this, first-degree murder, what that entails legally, I think it's a very strong case. I absolutely think prosecutors will be able to be successful with it, and I hope that they are.
Let me go through these 3 points real fast to see, because I want to get specifics and see which one of these things will stick, because I'm glad you brought that up. So Illinois law defines first-degree murder as one of these three. He or she either intends to kill or do great bodily harm to that individual or another, or knows that such acts will cause death to that individual or another. Number 2, he or she knows that such acts create a strong probability of death or great bodily harm to that individual, or this being the least likely, I think, he or she acting alone or with one or more participants commits or attempts to commit a forcible felony other than second-degree murder, and in the course of or in furtherance of such crime or flight their form. Oh God, this legalese talk is annoying the hell out of me. Either way it goes, it's probably the first two where they could have determined that this kind of treatment of someone in that kind of state, which they were told before they even showed up. The police were told he's an alcoholic and he's going through withdrawals. Maybe those are the ones that'll stick there. Are those the ones you were thinking?
Yeah, I think definitely number 2. I think number 2, 100%, you will be able to prove that. But it's important to remember you wouldn't be able to prove that if we didn't have that body cam footage. Without that footage, it would just be, oh no, well he rolled over and we did what we were supposed to in the time, because they can't lie their way out of that. It is on camera. And that of course is what's so powerful. That is why these cameras are so vital. But it looks like now, maybe we got to put them on the paramedics too. You know, maybe we need to start taking a look at this. When I first saw this story, you know, it kind of shocked me. I assumed it was the cops that did this, but then to find out it was the paramedics, I mean, my God, how systemic is this? You know, if it stretches beyond the police into the first responders, the ones who don't even carry weapons yet somehow are still able to kill people, that's even more terrifying.
Like I said about cops, they're just citizens who clock in and that's their job next. And they have a gun and a badge and they can wield this kind of power. So whatever biases or feelings they have about certain folks, or whether or not they think certain folks need help because of the position that they put themselves in, they can determine whether or not they do their job. Yo, that's something that we can't let happen. And I guess it stretches over to, firefighters, paramedics. I don't know how many stories there could be about other folks that are there to serve and have been paid to do so that sometimes just don't feel like it. Again, she says, we're not gonna go through this BS tonight, Earl. I'm not gonna take it. You're gonna do this. Why? Let's go to this next story, because I have questions about why when it comes to Elon Musk. But he's facing a couple of financial issues that I guess he didn't see coming. Everyone else saw it. Let's go here.
Now to San Francisco, where jury selection is underway in a trial brought by Tesla shareholders. They're suing Elon Musk for fraud. Their argument, a tweet Mr. Musk sent in 2018 cost them billions of dollars after the stock price plummeted. Our North America correspondent David Willis has the details.
Well, this all dates back to August 2018, more than 4 years ago, to 2 tweets that Elon Musk put out. One saying that he was considering taking Tesla private. The follow-up tweet saying that he had secured the funding necessary to do that. That sent the company's stock price soaring, only for it to plummet 10 days later, when it became clear that he had not, in fact, secured the funding that was necessary to take Tesla private. So now some investors are suing Elon Musk and some of his fellow former and current directors, basically claiming share price manipulation and fraud. They are seeking undisclosed damages in a court in San Francisco. Now,
Elon Musk is some serious trouble this morning. Here's those tweets that they were talking about. He's being sued by some money folks because he cost them a whole bunch of money from these tweets, these promises. He makes a lot of these. He says, I'm considering taking Tesla private at $420. Funding secure. This is back in 2018. And he also said shareholders could either to sell at $420 or hold shares and go private. Yo, this is exciting news. All this stuff is happening, except the $72 billion stock buyout collapsed when it was clear that Musk did not have the funding, unlike, that very professional statement when you make sure you tell everyone on Twitter about your business moves and how everyone should move around their stock options and money and everything based off of that. Maybe that's a lesson for everyone else. So here's more details about this trial, and also from this same correspondent and the jury that's coming for this trial, because again, they're coming after him. Watch.
Elon Musk is claiming that he did meet with a Saudi investor, a billionaire investor, on several occasions, who could have potentially provided the funding needed for him to take the company private. But he is facing an uphill battle as far as the jury is concerned in this case, not least because the judge has ruled in a previous hearing that those two tweets that I mentioned were reckless and untrue in the judge's words. And that same judge has also denied an application by Elon Musk's lawyers to have the case transferred to Texas on the grounds that Elon Musk is unpopular in San Francisco following his acquisition of Twitter quite recently. Twitter is also based, of course, in San Francisco. So this 3-week trial is...
His attorneys, by the way, fair enough, saying that, get off Elon's back. All he did was he just used the wrong words in describing what the deal is. What words was he trying to use?
I'll get to that in just a second, but I have to say, I could listen to that BBC reporter. I could listen to him talk all day. If I ever win the Powerball, I would love to have the money to pay that man to narrate my life, because everything he says in that voice is just so wonderful. It could make even the dumbest things I do seem sophisticated.
They pull it off.
I had to say it because I love his voice. But with this Musk, here's the analysis I have in my head, or analogy. If you had the CEO of Exxon come out on Twitter and say, listen up, folks, Exxon is now gonna move into renewable energy only. We are getting rid of oil production. We are only going to renewable energy. What would happen at that point? The stock price would go up. You would have people buying, or it would go down. You would have people lose a lot of money. And then if he comes out a couple days later and says, nah, I changed my mind, I'm not gonna do it. Well, guess what? That is stock market manipulation. That was done with the intent of either driving up or driving down the price of the stock. And I use that as a simpler analogy, because to me, that's no different than what Elon Musk did here. He made an announcement to the world, not to the shareholders.
Yeah.
And that is the difference. Because when you say it to the world, you're sending that message to everybody that, big things are happening. Whereas when you are a real businessman or businesswoman and you have decisions about your company, you don't put it on Twitter. You send it in a shareholder meeting, for the main holders, and then you send it as a memo to everyone that holds the stock, because this is not public information about a publicly traded company. This is private information that is only pertinent to the shareholders. And that is the difference, and that is why this is not a smart businessman. It genuinely is not.
Fair and devastating, deep, in-depth advice there for Elon Musk. Don't tweet out personal, private information about stock options and holders and all that. It's weird how that has to be conveyed to someone who's such a business genius. Odd that they think the same thing about Donald Trump, even though he makes juvenile type of decisions like this as well. There's a second part that Elon's going through. Let's go through this really fast. He also has to start interest payments on that purchase of Twitter. So he's got the Tesla issues, and this is the issues over at Twitter now. Elon Musk may be facing the first interest payment on the debt he took to buy Twitter as early as this month in January. That's according to Financial Times report. And also, given Twitter's high level of indebtedness, the world's second richest man may have to weigh options, including the sale of more Tesla shares in order to finance that payment. By the way, that first installment is related to $13 billion of debt that he compiled with buying it for $44 billion. So that means the company has to pay about $1.5 billion in annual interest payments. If they don't, it's possible that this happens. If Twitter fails to make that first payment, the management could file for bankruptcy to initiate a debt restructuring process. As an alternative to bankruptcy, Musk could sell more of those Tesla shares, having already offloaded nearly $40 billion to help finance that Twitter deal already. So more happening, and if he fails on it, he could end up being called NCAA in this world, which is short for no coupon at all by debt traders. A bit of a pariah in the financial world, and no one can trust him. Weird how that works when you just say random things and promise things that you have no intention of doing.
It blows my mind that the second richest human being on the planet, that we're actually sitting here talking about, oh, well, they may not pay this debt or this interest, and they may just file for bankruptcy instead. Bankruptcy for corporations and for people like Musk and Donald Trump too, it's not a way to actually settle your debts and move on with your life. It is a legal maneuver. I mean, Musk can do that. Trump can do that. All these other wealthy corporations, Johnson & Johnson, they get to file for bankruptcy in spite of making billions of dollars every year just because they don't want to have to pay out all of these verdicts against them and they want to spin it into a new company. It is infuriating because we see bankruptcy happen all the time with companies and people that are worth billions. We know they got the money. We know they can pay the bills. They just don't want to do it.
And they'll call you guys lazy and freeloaders and feeding off of the country and not providing anything back when this happens over and over and over again. In fact, Donald Trump bragged about it, so they're pretty open about it, and I guess in this case too. Thank you, Farron, for being here on the show. Yeah, we talked enough. Appreciate you being here. Go check out Farron on all of his shows. How many? 4 or 5 of them by now? Ring of Fire and also Farron Balance. You guys check them out. Up next is John Adderall with the Damage Report. Bridget Todd is his guest. Go check them out. It should be a fun show. We'll see you guys tomorrow on the watch list.